This week's Lasso Works Cedar Coach of the Week is Anthony Witcher of the 5th and 6th grade boys Aztecs. Coach Witcher, great job. I was able to listen in on his devotional this week, and man, really, really good. Really getting into what we want those kids to be hearing about the Word of God. And then getting them out there on the court, and the intensity was phenomenal. The practice, just the organization was phenomenal. Really, really into it. And then they go out and get a big win this week as well. So, Coach Witcher, for your contributions this week, you are our Lasso Works Cedar Coach of the Week.
This week's LC Sports and Recreation Player of the Week goes to Jensen Melton of the Hurricanes kindergartner team. Coach Madison said that Jensen played so hard during the game, not only the game, but practice too. And what impressed her the most was that after the game, he found ways to compliment almost every teammate on his team. What an amazing example of how to show others their worth and be the light to others. Jensen Melton, good job. You are this week's Player of the Week.
All right, welcome to the next episode of Winning with the Home Team. I'm Katrina.
And I'm Todd.
And today we have a super special treat for you guys. We've got the Dunns. This is Rhonda Dunn and Patrick Dunn. And man, they have so much sports experience, both on the parent side of things as well as being a coach and an administrator. So welcome.
Thanks.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah. So why don't you guys just introduce yourself as far as just personally, you and your family, and then also just the expertise that you've had in your field.
Okay. Well, first of all, it's not expertise; it's experience.
Okay, experience. We'll go. Yeah, we'll do that.
I'm Rhonda. I am Patrick's wife and a mom, the mom of Parker and Peyton and Presley and Paxton. And Parker is 20 and Paxton is 12, and then Peyton's 18 and Presley is 14. I also am a coach, both at high school. Have been an assistant coach for years and years and years and years. Have recently took on a position as a head coach, and also have recently taken on an administrative role on our campus.
Yeah. Cool.
So.
I'm Patrick Dunn, and this is my wife, Rhonda. She said we have the 4 kids. We've gone through some parenting stuff with kids. We've gone through some coaching with our own kids. We've coached at the high school level for around 20 plus years, and now we're also working with the junior high kids. So we get a good mix of them, and we've grown up here with Upward Sports, so we've been involved at that level too.
Yeah. So you had Parker, your oldest. He did wrestling, right? Mm-hmm. And then you've got Peyton. She did volleyball, right? Which is your experience, not expertise, but experience, right?
Right.
And then Presley, she does volleyball. Has she landed on volleyball as kind of the trajectory?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's right now her favorite.
Yeah.
She's still in 8th grade, so she still has the opportunity to play. She did choose not to play basketball this year, which,
That's the first time, right?
I know.
That's the first time.
I know.
Okay. All right.
Hurt me a little bit. But she plans on playing soccer and running track. And, we have always had this philosophy with our kids that they do as much as they can and as much as our family can. And when they were younger, some of them wanted to be in everything, like multiple things, multiple seasons. And we did say, every kid gets one thing per season. And we truly tried. Sometimes it was like the blessing of Upward Basketball was when all of them were in it. Mm-hmm. You guys did such a good job of making sure that they could all be involved, and it wasn't like stretching us so thin. Right. So, sometimes it was, we are all doing basketball right now, or we are all doing soccer, or we are all doing this. But it was soccer, and then that's it. Yeah. You know what I mean, for that season. Right. So we have always encouraged them to do as much as they could for as long as they could. And for Parker and Peyton, both of them, that kind of ended at junior high, and they chose to specialize. And that's hard. I mean, it's hard at a big high school to do more than one thing, but it's
Sure.
also hard to see them
Yeah.
not get to experience all of the things.
Sure.
But yeah, they were we've just always encouraged them to do all of it for as long as they could.
So you guys are both at Martin High School, right?
Yes.
Which there's a lot of success that has come out of y'all's program. So I know, Rhonda, you say not expertise, but yet you guys are both very successful. So can you talk a little bit about the success? I know neither one of you are the kind to toot your own horn, but I'm asking you to just, kind of go over how successful your programs have been.
Go ahead.
The kids are great,
Yeah.
and the program is awesome, and it's only because we have really awesome kids who are and parents who are supportive, and an administration that is supportive, and a community that is supportive.
Sure. Yeah.
And so, at the end this year, especially, I found myself saying, like, what we do here is important, but nobody is going to die over what we do or don't
Yes.
do.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then by the end of the season, I kind of came to the conclusion it's not life or death, but what they experience here really will allow them to have a better life.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's important.
It
The
is.
experience
It
is important.
Yeah. So, I mean, success in the wins and losses. We don't like. Nobody likes to lose. We really
Sure.
don't like to lose.
Sure.
And we're very competitive. I mean, I think that's one thing that we found out about each other early on when we met was that both of us are very competitive.
Yeah.
But I think the longer that we've been coaching, the more that we see it's just more than winning.
Yeah.
It's more than being
Yeah.
successful. And we tell the kids a lot of there are lots of there's more than just the scoreboard. There's more
Right.
than just the numbers. And so I don't know. That's where we.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we both have kind of the same philosophy. Like, is what you do each and every day. We're not worried about wins and losses. Like, if you're being a good person, if you're taking care of your academics, are you improving every day? Those are the things we focus on. I mean, more than anything. I mean, the results are the results. Sometimes you have control over winning, sometimes you don't. So it's not really a focus on that. If we can build them into, young men and women that are futurely successful and, in their marriages and their work and society, then that's a win. When they come back, one of my favorite things is when kids come back years later and they're like, Coach, man, what you helped me get through when I got a tough spot or whatever, I was able to get through it. And those are the things, or you see a kid who was never very successful on the win column in wrestling, come back and they are super successful in life. And you're like, okay, this is why I did it.
Yes. Yeah.
So that's the most important thing. And I think when we were younger, I'll say especially me, man, I was like, I want to win
Yeah.
because I just want to win. But now, I mean, you sit back and you start thinking, you look at the person, you try to do what's best for each individual kid. And that's different for each kid. So sometimes when you're trying to figure out what's best for a kid, it's different. And that, a lot of people have trouble seeing that. Like, they don't know the whole background behind it. But at the end of the day, if you're doing what's right, then it's a win. You get to go home.
So I totally expected y'all to answer the way you did, which is exactly why you're on the podcast, by the way. I don't think I've ever been anywhere with you, Patrick, and pull the curtain back a little bit. Yes, we know them personally, but I don't think I've ever been anywhere with you where you didn't have a kid come up to you and say, hey, Coach, and that kind of impact that you have on kids' lives is fantastic. And so I know y'all are both the same way.
I think one of my favorite memories of Pat and just the relationship that he has with his kids. Well, there are two. One state tournament we were at, they have their state tournament in Houston, and a couple of his guys came, and it was so fun to just hang out with them in the stands and visit with them in the stands. I mean, he was coaching them before we even had kids, and we would tell the stories of just, I don't know, we had a lot more time to be around the kids than before we had our own kids.
Yeah.
And then for his 50th birthday party, some of the guys came over
fun.
for his birthday
that's
party.
what
That is
matters.
neat.
That's how you know that you've made a difference if they show up at your 50th birthday party.
Yeah. So,
Hopefully.
Wait, you're not 35?
sorry. I meant 39.
39,
birthday
yes.
party.
Yeah.
There we go.
And it was really cool for our kids to see those guys
That
come
is
back.
very neat.
And,
Yeah.
So
Well, we're talking about winning it with sportsmanship, how to be a sideline parent. I instantly thought about you guys just because of some of your experience. And as I think back to our goal in in our sports leagues. Our goal is to provide a positive atmosphere for the kids that play sports. Like, we want every kid to have a positive sports experience, right?
Right.
But we know that positive sports experience, the coach is involved in that and the refs are involved in that. But so much of that positive sports experience obviously happens on game day. And there's such a big component of just the spectatorship that's in the gym, right? This past Saturday, I was in the gym and I'm with kinder first and second, like those babies, right? 5, 6, 7-year-olds. And, I think it's important, when parents think about sportsmanship and being a good spectator, envision yourself 5 or 6 or 7 years old and you're on this basketball court, maybe for the first time, maybe this is your first game, even if it's your second season or third season, you're in this gym and, once the ball, gets tipped, you've got like 3 different groups of people yelling at you, giving you instruction, right? And so when you think about, being, a positive spectator, I think it's really important for parents to step back as a whole and say, okay, this is kind of what my kid is going into. How can I be a support for them?
Yeah.
So in your experience as parents, how have you seen spectatorship, in regards to sportsmanship? How have you seen that affect a kid's ability to play in the game? And then how have you seen it actually just completely just shatter a kid's focus, a kid's confidence, all those things?
Okay, well, I can speak of 2 experiences this year. What I always try to tell the parents is, because they put these expectations on the kids, and I'm like, your kid wants to perform. Like, he's not purposely losing or he's not purposely doing anything wrong. And I just said, you're overwhelming him by putting pressure on him. I said, as a parent, your job is to clap, smile, and cheer him on. That's it. We're here to coach, and how many times we tell our kids that we see they're struggling, like, hey, we love you no matter what. We tell them all the time, like, we don't care about your wins and losses.
Yeah.
Like, and we've had to pull parents in and talk to them just like, hey, your kid loves you. You love your kid. Like, don't let this interfere that. Because for some reason, sports make us crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
sports more
yeah,
than others.
yeah. And it's like, let's just, you don't treat other kids like that if they lose or win. So let's treat everyone the same,
Right.
And so once I think the parents get that, or if they're actually kind of told, and I usually tell the kid, you need to tell your kid, or you need to tell your parents in front of me how it makes you feel. Because that makes a bigger impact. Now, it's high school, so it's a little bit different, than dealing with upward and stuff like that. But I mean, it's fun. Like, if you're not smiling, why are you doing it? And that's not just athletics. It should be everything in life, really. Like, you should enjoy what you're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about you?
I think from a recreational and a younger kid's perspective, first of all, like, I always coach the kids, like our own kids. And I remember being a parent and a coach in one of Peyton's first basketball games. Like, you have this idea in your head of how your kid is going to perform, right? And like your expectations and your standards.
Yes.
Sure.
Not just as a parent, but also a coach. And I remember watching Peyton the first half, and I'm like, she doesn't even care about this. Like, what's going on? And, my sister had to pull me off to the side, and she's like, she is 5 years old. Let her play. Let her be who she is.
Right.
And that was really hard for me because, like, I value hard work, and I wanted her to be aggressive and get after it. And, like, she was 5. That was as aggressive as she wanted to be,
Yeah.
And that was great. We were really lucky when our kids were growing up that we kind of had a core group of kids and parents that the kids always played with, or were on teams with. And I think the best thing about those parents is that they cheered for every kid on the team.
Yeah.
And I think that's so important as a parent in the stand is
Right.
that you're not there just to watch your kid. And it's so hard because, of course, that's what's going to draw your attention.
Yeah.
But you cheer for every kid on the team. And I think especially recreationally, you cheer for the opponent too.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
good ball is good ball.
Right.
And great effort is great effort, whether it is on your team or on the other team. And you know, I just think the parents that are able to applaud every kid in the gym, really it provides a better experience for their
Yes.
own
Yeah.
kid too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So are there times when you have to have those conversations with parents as coaches, even at your level?
Well, you mentioned. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just this.
I always talk to the kid first and ask them kind of what's going on, why. And you can tell by their body language. I mean, it doesn't matter if they're 5 years old or they're whatever. And either like maybe they're embarrassed by their parents, how they're yelling or screaming. You can just see them drop. Like in basketball, you can just see, like, oh my goodness, it's my mom or dad.
Yeah.
And then for us, I pull them in and say, what's going on? I said, just be open and honest with us. And we can't fix anything if you're
Right.
not. And
Sure.
then we always try to address it, right away, and I always tell the parent, hey, this is why we're meeting. I'm honest with them, why we're meeting, not so they don't come in and they don't know. And so I think, and I also have the other coaches in there. It's just not me. I mean, I'm always asking for ideas. I mean,
Yeah.
and I think Rhonda's the same way. We don't know it all by any means. Like
Right.
we are. I know we've done this for a while, but we are still learning. We're still trying, watching. Rhonda's real good at podcasts and things like that. So it's a continuously learning thing. And we still, I think as parents sometimes, at least for me, I have to realize, like for Paxton, he's wrestling. Like, hey, he's in 6th grade. Like, stop.
Yeah.
Like, I have to catch myself. And so I understand how parents get there. Right. And usually they respond very well when you just come in and talk to them honestly and openly.
Yeah. So a very direct approach is
Yes.
what it sounds like.
For me, that's worked the best with the parents.
Right.
I think one commonality is every parent wants the best for their kid.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I think it's hard for parents probably, Pat was saying how you're always trying to do the best thing for a kid. For an individual sport that you can really focus on an individual, but in a team sport, you're also looking for the best for the whole team. And I think that's hard because parents are really focused on their kid.
Right.
They want the best for their kid, but as a coach, you've also got 12 other kids.
Yeah.
that
Sure.
you've got to protect and you've got to make their experience
Well,
good too.
and one of those conversations I know you and I have talked about in the past is you have to be honest with parents about talent level of their kids, because sometimes you have parents who think that their kid is the next big thing and they are just not there talent-wise yet, if at all. And so sometimes those conversations have to be had at a fairly early stage, right?
They do. And that's why like we talk about it. I tell the kids, when you leave practice, did you get better? Like whatever that is to you.
Right.
Don't compare yourself to someone else. Like when you left the gym, do you feel good about yourself and in the direction you're going? Because really in practice, you either get better or you get worse. You don't really kind of stay the same.
Right.
And so our goal is just for each individual to get better, whatever that is.
Okay.
Even I'm also competitive, and I have a 4.5-year-old, right? She played soccer this past season, and Taya definitely is a people pleaser. She wants to please me.
Yeah.
And so even at 4.5, out on the soccer fields last spring, I saw myself, pushing myself, similar to what you were saying, like, why is she even out there? Like, she's just, she's not even trying hard. But then when she would always look to me to make sure that, either that I was happy, and she's used those words, Mom, are you happy? Gosh, talk about like a gut check. Taya, my happiness has nothing to do with you. Like, you're doing a great job.
Yeah.
And so, I think every kid is different in their approach, for sure. Let's talk about some, if you had to narrow it down to, maybe 3 or 4 aspects of a parent's role in the stands, what would it be?
I mean, I think that the biggest thing is be a cheerleader. I mean, first of all, like,
Yeah, you mentioned it. Clap and smile.
yes, it's not very hard. Clap, smile, and then after the meet, just love on your kid and don't worry about what the scoreboard said. Like if they won, they won. They lost, treat them the same. Don't tie their value into the wins and losses.
Yes.
Because kids know that.
Yeah.
And so I think that's, for me, that would be things I would say. Just be a cheerleader and then love your kid the same no matter what.
Yeah.
I think I don't know. I've been thinking about this for the last few days. Just a parent's behavior in the stands and how a kid responds, how your kid responds. I don't know if it would be a bad idea to say to your kid, hey, you know, like we have expectations of them.
Sure.
Couldn't you say to your kid, hey, what kind of mom do you want me to be in the stands? Like, you want me to cheer loud?
That's good.
Do you want me to clap my hands? Do you want me to start a wave? Do you want me to, like, what kind? Because I remember when Peyton started playing volleyball, like, I thought it was really important that she know that I was there. You know what I mean? And I would cheer for everybody, but I think, probably one of the, and I had a really good friend who sat beside me too. And we had known these girls, we loved these girls, and we would just cheer. And I think I'm sure it embarrassed her, you know? And if I would have just 3 games in said, is this the guy? When you look, are you embarrassed because of me? Yeah. You know what I mean? But some kids really do want their parents. And as from a coach's perspective, I love seeing parents up in the stands that are cheering their hearts out and clapping and, you know, really kind of creating some positive energy. But I don't know that every kid wants.
No, that's a great point. You know, I think about my son, like Colin, he's a sophomore at Arlington High School. And I think if we clapped and yelled for him every time he came up to the plate, he would just die right there at the plate. Like, he doesn't want that. He wants us to sit there and be present and smile and, you know, clap when he's done. And that's it. Yeah. So I think you're right. It's kid to kid. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. That's good.
Well, and two, I think, you know, my sister would come to the games and she would lead the cheer. I mean, she's super.
She is super energetic.
Yeah.
And she will yell their numbers out. Yes. And they love that.
Yes,
it's great coming from her.
Yeah.
But not you.
But not.
Neither of us.
Right. Come from mom or dad.
No. All 4 would not want mom and dad to say anything.
Yeah.
But they are fine with Denise.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
But there's a level of, like, know your kid, right? Like, you need to know your kid and be willing to be open. We sit here and we talk about, you know, just knowing what to do and when. If you don't know your child well enough, then maybe there's other issues there that need to be.
And how are you going to know them if you don't ask?
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah.
Like.
And it's okay not to know everything.
Yeah.
So, like, for me, how hard do I push them?
Right.
Our own kids. And when do we back off? That I struggle with that to this day.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to do it for me.
That's different from kid to kid as well, right? Like.
Yeah, I think at least the boys are pretty consistent on that. I mean, I think maybe all 4 of them are.
Yeah.
And so, but our girls are more motivated than the boys.
Yeah.
I mean, they are.
Yeah. So it comes back down to a relationship with your kid, right? You have a story about Colin and something that you don't talk about after a game.
Yeah. So, and he plays a lot of baseball. A lot. And I feel like baseball season never ends anymore, right? It's year round. And I'm guilty of being that parent that's like, you know, on some of the nuances of the game, hey, you need to think about this or think about that. And what I found is a lot of times, especially after bad games, he gets in the car, he doesn't want to talk. Like, he doesn't want to even say anything because he's already feeling like, man, I went 0 for 3 today, or, you know, whatever it is. And so I've come to understand that the best thing to do is get in the car and talk about anything but baseball. That ride home needs to be father-son time and not, you know, baseball coach to son time, because, you know, I stopped being able to coach him at that level a long time ago, you know, and he just wants his dad to be there. And so if we talk about anything in the world other than his game that day, I've found that that's easily the best way to develop a better relationship with my son, you know. And you know, what's funny about that is a lot of times he'll come back to me later that day or the next day and say, he'll be like, you know, that ball to right field, like, I should have taken a step over this way, or whatever it is, you know. And he'll bring it up and he wants to talk about it, but he only does that when he knows that it's a safe place, that he's not just going to be grilled immediately about, why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? I don't follow him into the classroom and ask him, you know, why didn't you study this way? Why didn't you study that way? I just make sure he does, you know, what he's supposed to do, but I don't critique everything he does at school. So I shouldn't, you know, go on the field with him and do that too. So,
but it's so hard, right? Because I mean, we have all of the right answers to tell them. Like, we see them in action. We know that if they'll just get their elbow in, you know, or if they'll, you know, just, you know, it's so easy because we're so competitive, right? Is. Rhonda, you mentioned that that you've coached, you know, pretty much most of your kids, and Pat, you have too. I think one of the more important roles in a spectator's, job description, if you will, while they're in the gym is to back the coach, right? I mean, within reason, right? Like, we don't want any hazing going on for sure. But I think backing the coach just in the terms of, if you trust a coach to do their job, if you've signed a kid up for X, Y, and Z sports, then you're trusting the coach that they know what they're doing. And I think so many times kids get, they get confused about who to listen to, right? Because they hear their parents' voice in the stands.
Yeah.
And your parents' voice, right? Like, that tone and you pick up on it quick. But then, you actually lose what the coach is trying to tell you. I'm sure you guys have had that experience in coaching.
I think, well, in our experience, first of all, every parent that has a concern, I want to know. Like, if you have a concern about your kid, about what we're doing, I welcome conversations because I would much rather have a face-to-face conversation than us wondering or anybody wondering or assuming something that's not necessarily going on. And I know from my experience, just with being in the gym with my own kids, there's a lot that happens in the gym that gets misrepresented sometimes when it goes home.
Yeah.
And so that we're all on the same page and so that we all know, like, from a coach's perspective, I've sat in meetings and, like, the parents' perception of what has happened isn't even from the kid. It's kind of created in their own mind. And then, I don't mean to,
right. So do you deal with...
edit this out, but I remember even with our own kids, the thing about a parent, and they get to believe what their kid, and that's a privilege to believe and have a conversation. The difference, I think, in our roles is that both of us were in the gym at the same time, and then we're standing around the kitchen, and the biggest coach problem that we ever had was me, and so, but we were able to say, I was able to say, that's not what happened.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like that, this is what happened.
Right.
And I think too, we are so emotionally involved in the game and in practice and so competitive that we probably don't see things rationally or objectively. And so...
Well, do you guys encourage parents to talk to you at the high school level, or do you keep them out of it?
So, I want them to talk to me. My practices are open. Like, if you want to come watch practice, as long as you're sitting down, not saying a word, it's open because I want you to see how we treat your kids in practice. I want you to see how we interact with them. I don't want anything to be, behind closed doors. Like, it's an open book. Like, here's what you're going to get at practice. Here's what you're going to get in matches. And some people kind of pop their head in and see what's going on, and
Yeah.
Now, do we want parents to come in with lineups and practice plans?
Right.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Like,
and I'm sure you
that's
still see some of that stuff,
do.
right?
Yeah.
I've had conversations, and here's the problem with sports. Every parent has either participated in sports or watched sports, and they're all experts.
Right.
Yes.
If we went to their, we went to their job, and they're a nuclear physicist or a doctor, and we're in there yelling at them, no, that's not where you cut. Hey, what?
Right.
Well, how would they?
Yeah.
Because I read a book.
Yeah.
And so I think that's the one thing about the coaching aspect is everyone has done it or thinks they can do it, and we're in public. We're public figures. And so
it's a performance.
it is. It is.
This is the kids' performance.
Right.
They're on stage.
Yeah.
Like the example that you use with the classroom, we don't make the kids take a test in front of an audience.
Right. Right.
But they compete in front of an audience.
That is their classroom.
Yeah.
For student athletes is on the field or on the court. Yeah. Agreed. So is there something that you guys do, I feel like we've bashed on the parents enough, so we can move on to the kids now. Is there anything that you guys do within the team to create that sportsmanship? Is there something specific that you tell your kids or do with your kids?
Here you go.
Go ahead.
Okay. So, a couple things is we have a little saying before practice that we always say before every practice. And it kind of just reminds us why we're there. And so it just basically, I'm thankful for the opportunity to wrestle, and it kind of goes on like that. Just to remind them at the beginning of practice. And we end practices, you have to find people that helped you out and shake their hand and look them in the eye and thank them.
Yeah.
And so we end up with some sportsmanship, because in wrestling, you're basically fighting for 2 hours. And
Yeah.
when it's over, we're all in this together.
Right.
And so we do that. I just try to start and end practice with positive stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
Because, once again, you just don't know what's going on once they leave. So we want to make it a positive experience for them.
Right. Right. Okay.
Our mantra has been for a long, long time, team first. And it's putting the team before individual. And so we do a lot of high fives and encouragement.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
just a lot of high fives.
Yeah.
And transitions. Hey, find 3 people, give them a high five. And so, it's hard. They're competing for a spot. That's the hard.
Yes.
Yeah.
They
The
are
competition
competing
is
with
there.
each other. And like you said, they're fighting for 2 hours. They are. And we want that. Like, we want kids to have
To compete.
To compete.
Iron sharpens iron.
Yes.
for sure.
Yeah. And we talk too a lot about good competition brings out the best in us, and let good competition bring out the best in you. And don't be afraid of somebody competing against you.
Yeah, for sure. One of my biggest regrets, and this is going to sound silly, but when I was in high school, I can remember I was a captain, and so we'd go out for the coin flip before the start of the game, and it's just pounded into your head that like the other team is the enemy, right? And so we do the coin flip, and it's time to shake hands, and I would immediately turn and go back to the sideline because they're the enemy, right? And like that's a silly thing, but it's a regret for me, because how dumb was that?
Yeah.
That I just got it in my head that they're the enemy. And so that competition kind of brings that mentality to the surface, where you see it even in our youth sports, in our basketball league, where kids get so competitive that they're ready to fight right there on the court.
Yeah, I had a kid this past Saturday. I said, at the very beginning of the game, I said, all right, go to the opposing team and give them a high five. And a kid goes up and gives the opposing team a high five, and he goes, I'm going to kill you. And I'm like, no, wait a second.
Right.
No, we're not going to kill anybody here. We're going to have fun. We're going to play basketball. We're going to compete. But we're not going to kill anybody here.
And we have the benefit of being adults now and looking back on it and saying, okay, that was obviously not the right way. We have perspective now, whereas we didn't when we were that age, even as teenagers in high school. But it's hard. It's hard to grasp that. And I know, like, you guys are both very successful at what you do. In fact, just the other night, you and I, Pat, were talking about wrestling, and if you can, just kind of share the story about how you were up so many points, and it was just expected that you were going to be up that many points. Go ahead, because I have a follow-up question for that.
Was it just about the amount of points we were?
Yes, yeah.
Well, so we were at a tournament this past weekend, and we scored a lot of points, and we were winning by a lot, and it's just kind of expectation. But I guess I don't really know what you're.
So one of the crew, what you were telling me is one of, I don't know if it was an official or whoever said, well, I'm surprised you're not up even more.
So after day one, we were up, I thought by a lot of points.
Yeah.
And the comment was made, I thought you'd be up by more.
Right.
And I was thinking, well, our kids are wrestling really well. Like, I don't even care if we're up by 1 point or 80 points.
So you want ahead by one.
Right.
Yeah. And I was like, why? In my head, I was kind of like, why would you say that?
So, but the expectation is, because your reputation precedes you, that you're really good. Your teams are going to be really good when you bring them in already. So how do you create that sportsmanship level when you know that those other teams are coming in knowing that you guys are just going to mow them down probably? And there's probably some jealousy involved with that. How do you continue to create that sportsmanship environment with your kids with that kind of rivalry?
So so what we've done is we have 3 team leaders, and they have teams in our own team, and so their job, those 3 teams compete against each other at the tournaments, and so they have small groups that they're really cheering for. But it's also competitive because each team is keeping score against each other, so they have to cheer for the small team, but they also need the other teams to be successful for the whole team to be successful.
Yeah,
and so they are mat side cheering for each other.
Right.
But they also have it invested because they want their team, their smaller team, to do well too.
Yeah.
And so I just think it was important, instead of, because being an individual sport, a lot of times we get caught up. It's about me,
right,
as long as I win. And so we're trying to get more of the team aspect of, it's not really about us, what can you do for your teammates,
Yeah. Yeah.
and help each other out.
Right.
And so, and that's helped out a lot, I think, because there's different levels of winning. Like, I mean, it's not even the score sometimes, we like this weekend, we had some non-point scores do really well. And the kids were more excited about one of our JV kids beating a state champ.
Yeah.
That they were more excited about that than anything else,
Right.
because he had just performed at a level that he hadn't done before.
Yeah.
And that's what I like to see, man. They were jumping on him, high fiving like they won this, won the whole thing.
Right.
And so that's a good thing to see. I think they really care about each other, and so that's at the end of the day, that's what matters. It's not about a trophy or anything else.
Yeah.
I think too part of the tradition of success can be really detrimental to a kid and their identity. And we've discussed this with our kids a lot, because there's this pressure, right? And I'm sure your kids feel pressure to compete and to be successful. And they know that you guys have been really successful. They know the tradition, and that adds a lot of pressure.
Sure.
But also, we talk a lot about, like, this is a new team. This is your identity. And I think that, like, success is great, and the tradition of success is great. But you also have to let every year's team be a new team and
100%.
be a new kid or be their own person. And I don't know, there's a quote that I read, the greatest opportunity that we have is to be our own person.
Yeah.
And so, a lot of times we look at, well, this was last year's team, so I've got to fill the role of this person who, was a setter. And even when I was in high school, I had a coach who would every year, well, next year, and he would, I remember he had a conference with my mom, and mom came home, and my mom said, well, he thinks that you're going to be the next.
Yeah.
And it was such, oh my gosh. But then I felt like I had to pass like
have
her, move like her,
Right.
serve like her.
Yeah, sure.
Right.
Like, be this instead of just being
Being you.
And
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
like, tradition success is great, but also it can add a lot of pressure.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think as coaches and parents, we need to make sure we're paying attention to our kids on that, and making sure, like, it goes back to, is this fun? Like, as a coach, I mean, we got to stop practice sometimes. We're playing dodgeball. Why?
Right.
Because they're stretched out. Or as a parent, why isn't this fun? Like, what can we do to make it, not worry about this stuff? And as adults, we got to do that.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Don't take yourself too seriously.
Yes.
correct.
Right.
Correct.
Yeah.
It's so hard. Like, so,
When you're competitive, it's really
yes.
It's very
And I
hard.
have Pat's really fun, but I have been termed the unfun done.
The unfun
The
done.
unfun done.
Oh, the unfun
And
done.
I gotta. Well, who termed you that though? Is that
Not me.
Good answer. Good answer.
It started in the classroom.
okay? Okay.
Because I'm pretty serious about, if this is important to me, I'm pretty serious. And then when I was an assistant coach, it was really easy to be fun. You know what I mean? Because I just, but then that transition to coach, I just turned into unfun done. And so, like, there have been times when the kids and even some parents have said, you've got to loosen up, and I appreciate that, because I will get so, basketball makes me crazy. Basketball turns really unfun.
Yeah.
Yeah. It makes me,
Should I tell the story?
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, dude. So I have a lot of fun stories with the Dunns, but I guess it was Presley playing basketball. It was Presley, yeah. So maybe 3 years ago. 3 years ago, Presley was playing basketball, and Rhonda, of course, was her coach. And I'm refereeing, and I made a call. The call was an out of bounds call.
It was somebody else's call.
So somebody else made the call.
Yeah.
Okay. A call was made. The whistle was blown. Rhonda's team had the ball, right? So I have the ball.
Oh my gosh, this is,
yeah.
It's
a different
you're
one.
right, you're right. And there's another one too.
The referee, myself, I have the ball, and I'm giving it to one of Rhonda's little girls on the sidelines, and all of a sudden I hear, no. Someone is screaming at, I don't know who they're screaming at. There's just somebody coming running at me. And I turned to Rhonda, and she's like, don't take the ball, don't take the ball. And then I'm like, why? And then she gives instruction to somebody else, and then she goes, okay, now do it. And I'm like, good grief. But it was like she was running down the court saying, don't take the ball out until it's time, And so, yeah, you're right. You have a competitive nature to you, but I can appreciate that because I am too, for sure.
And also when I officiate, it refereeing makes me.
That's exactly where I was going with that. Is because so I walked in the gym this past Saturday, and the first thing I see when I walk in is you reffing, and my first thought was, this is a lady who is in. And you mentioned you're in an administrative role now. Like I can say it, you're important, right? But you are in such a high demand for people to get better, kids to get better in what they do. And yet here you are reffing, I don't know, what was the age group that you were reffing? Second graders, right? And that's why you get invited, at least on this podcast to give your experience, because it's your heart. And I think that's what all this boils down to, whether it's you reffing or us going to breakfast and you finding 7 kids that have, it's been 13 years since you've coached them and yet they're still coming back to you. Like that, the heart that you guys bring really sums up what it is that you guys bring to the table. And I think that's what we value most about you guys coming on here.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, it's it's what we love,
Yeah.
We're moving into off season, so we have a lot more time to like sit and do book studies or talk and get everybody on the same page. And last week we're talking about habits, and it's really hard to change behavior from the outside in. You really have to change behavior from the inside out. And so we talked about our why. And it makes me think about my why. And I told the girls, I was like, my why has changed, because I want them to find their why, but I also don't feel like you have to find it in 5 minutes. Like, don't feel like you need to spend 5 minutes articulating your why. Like, this is going to evolve, and I don't want you to settle in on one thing today. But then I shared with them that my why, when I started this 25 years ago, it's the same passion, right? The what is the same. The volleyball is the same. Sports is the same.
Right.
But my why is, about leadership and about excellence and about, in the classroom, I can inspire excellence. Mm-hmm. But in the sports world, and you can inspire leadership.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So, I don't know. It's that why is really.
Yeah.
It's important.
Makes complete sense.
And then, just full circle, that leadership, that is your why on the court, is the same thing that the parents have the opportunity to display when they're in the gym cheering their kids on. So, Rhonda, Pat, thanks so much for coming on.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely.
Thanks for being friends, first of all.
That's our pleasure.
And all the experience that you guys give. Thanks for tuning in to episode 3. Thank you to the Dunns for being involved. And
we're still going after 3 episodes. We're going to make it through 8.
Maybe. We'll see. We'll see how it goes.
But thanks for following along with us, guys.
Yep. We'll see ya.